Imagine being stranded in space. Your supplies are low, and the only thing in the cargo hold is mouthwash? Welcome to the first episode of Curiosity Killed the Cat. I'm Kat, your host. Today, we're talking about mouthwashing, a psychological horror game that proves that your average household item can, for some reason, become the most threatening thing in space. So, what does this mouthwash really mean to the story? You've probably seen the game before, whether it be a TikTok edit with headlock as the audio, or from one of your favorite horror game YouTubers playing the game. Shout out Cub Scouts. But if you haven't, I'll give you a quick summary of the plot, as well as introduce the crew. But before I explain the plot, it's important to know that this game isn't told normally. You see, everything is cut into story segments, which take place in the past, the future, and the present, weeks, or even months apart. The game starts when the crew, Captain Curly, Co-Captain Jimmy, Medic Anya, Mechanic Swansea, and Intern Daisuke crash while transporting cargo through space. They don't have access to the resources. Curly almost dies due to the crash, which leaves him unable to walk or talk. Jimmy blames the crash on Curly and claims captaincy. 2 months later, they start running out of food and decide to break into the confidential shipment. They break in to find, surprise, millions and millions of bottles of mouthwash. It's not exactly ideal, but, being full of sugar, they begin living off of it. You might be asking yourself, doesn't mouthwash contain ethanol? It does, 14% to be exact. As expected, the crew enters a constant state of drunkenness. This becomes relevant. Tensions being at an all-time high. Anya eventually has enough and locks herself in the medical bay with a disfigured Curly to escape the crew. Jimmy drugs Swansea with a cocktail made from the mouthwash and convinces Daisuke to climb through the vents to retrieve Anya. Poor Daisuke becomes super duper hurt, and Swansea must put him out of his misery. Ever since I found out about the game, I was always curious as to why mouthwash? Why is mouthwash big enough of a deal for that to be the name of the game? Couldn't Wrong Organ name it, Tulper? And then it hit me. They use mouthwash, yes, but they also structure themselves around it, whether it be completely avoiding it or abusing it to the point of passing out. I'm looking at you, Swansea. So, here it is. Everyone's separate relation to the mouthwash and how mint-flavored vodka can be the physical manifestation of a coping mechanism and the downfall of 4.5 adults. Our captain and secondary protagonist, Orion Curly Carling, is present, technically. He knows everything that's going on, but he's not really able to say anything. After the crash, almost every part of him is burned to a crisp. He's unrecognizable, which is putting it lightly. He's got no limbs. The only bit you can see are his permanently open eye and mouth. Before the crash, he looked completely different. He was a man with blue eyes, light stubble, and had a middle part with curly blonde hair. Maybe that's where his name came from. Curly never drinks the mouthwash, though. He's also the only one with a consistent moral compass. Coincidence? I don't know. But not because he's strong, not because he thinks he's too good for it, but because he physically can't. As I said, most of his features and abilities were burnt, so he's essentially just reduced to a body, no way to speak, swallow, or resist. His sustenance is controlled by someone else, Jimmy, and it matters more than you think. He becomes sort of a living reminder of accountability. He saw what happened with his own eye. He knows what Jimmy did, and unlike the others, he can't escape using mouthwash. So, his relationship symbolizes his role in the story, a passive, powerless, moral anchor. He represents the guilt and responsibility that can't be swished around and spat out, no matter how hard Jimmy tries, and he really, really tries. Our protagonist and antagonist, Jimmy, is a thin man with straight, shoulder-length brown hair. A thing to note about him is that he has what some may call anger issues. He has a bold approach to most problems. Incorrect, but bold, nonetheless. He was the one that caused the crash, and according to him, it was a good reason. Okay, buddy. He assaulted Anya, leaving her pregnant, and before the crash, Curly had told him that the crew would be laid off after this delivery mission. In a way, he kinda treats mouthwash like he treats leadership, like something that looks authoritative, without actually doing the work. He assures everyone that everything is under control. Even when Anya explicitly tells him that the mouthwash doesn't work as a disinfectant, he still decides it's a good idea to use it on Daisuke. The mouthwash symbolizes Jimmy's leadership. Looks useful, feels productive, but it ultimately does nothing. His moral logic is, if it looks clean, if it feels decisive, then it must be right. He just keeps applying it. This does not help, Jimmy. The oldest crew member, Swansea, is a tall, middle-aged man with short brown hair and blue eyes. Due to his drinking history, He also has a noticeable belly. That will be significant later. Drinking history, not the belly. Anyway, he's usually grumpy and doesn't really care for Daisuke, his intern, who he usually sees as an annoyance rather than help. Swansea notices the ethanol, unfortunately, and becomes his first crew member to consume it for dental hygiene, allegedly, marking the start of the downfall and the death of the tulper. The mouthwash doesn't force him to drink. No, it offers him something he's been denying himself for 15 whole years: escape. It is implied that most of the ship's empty bottles come from him. If it was merely an addiction, it would be tragic. But he uses it as a system, making it worse. It provides him with a socially acceptable relapse. This gives Swansea permission to self-destruct while pretending it's practical. He numbs reality, avoids the fault, the isolation, and sense of impending doom. For being the only scientist on the ship, Anya gets absolutely no recognition. She's a woman with black hair cut into a shag, fair skin, and slanted eyes with long eyelashes and eyeshadow. Anya is one of my favorite characters, so forgive me if I sound a bit biased. She's a kind, smart, and determined nurse. Kind of. Since she was only allowed to be a nurse at Pony Express due to their nursing classes. Before the crash, she was happy and had a sense of humor and got along well with the rest of the crew, even as the only woman. After the assault from Jimmy, she became nervous and closed off. After the crash, her mental health declined rapidly, and she ended up in isolation and taking her own life. For Anya, finding symbolism was a bit more complicated. She's right and ignored, just like how the mouthwash clearly shows what it contains, and is ignored. And nothing says we're doomed like ignoring product instructions. Especially in space. All jokes aside, Anya is the medic. She's the only one that actually understands what the heck the mouthwash is and what it isn't. She says its sugar content makes it ineffective as a disinfectant, but it's like she's playing chess and everyone else is eating the pieces and calling it strategy. Since the moment Swansea consumed that mouthwash, Anya is scared and filled with urgency. But again, it goes in one ear and out the other. So, for Anya, the mouthwash symbolizes being right and being ignored anyway. Daisuke is my other favorite character. He's the one that's hurt the most by the mouthwash, more than anyone, even though he never chose it. Well, to be fair, nobody else did, but you know what I mean. He's a tall young man with tan skin, dyed middle part brown hair, and a round face with one mole on each cheek. He's the youngest crew member, and the most enthusiastic, even after the crash, and even though he was forced to go by his parents, who thought it would be a good opportunity for him. Wrong place, worst timing. Despite his happy exterior, he drunkenly confesses to Jimmy that he struggles to find a purpose in life. His relation to the mouthwash was the most innocent. He never wanted it in the first place. All he wanted was to impress Swansea and Jimmy. When the crew discovered the mouthwash, one of the first things Swansea says is,
"Daisuke, come here. Anyone ever teach you how to drink like a man?"
He trusted them. That was his first mistake. It doesn't only affect him by consumption, though. When Daisuke was made to climb through the vents by Jimmy to get Anya out of isolation, as I mentioned before, he got extremely injured. And as we know, most of Jimmy's plans are just, trust me bro, and this one is no exception. So he decided to disinfect his wounds with mouthwash? Since when does that work, Jimmy? Seriously. In fact, Anya said specifically that it wouldn't work. But alas, he sounded very sure and tried it. One may argue it was a learning experience. For everyone else. Obviously, it did not end well. In my opinion, Daisuke's end was the most tragic. Not so fun fact, swans actually kill their children when they're in pain. This is where real men cried. In conclusion, the mouthwash symbolized innocence being shaped and then immediately destroyed. And there it is, everyone, mouthwashing. A game about space, guilt, something adjacent to leadership, and the worst possible cargo. And Jimmy, if you're watching this, think about what you're doing. Then think about it a few more times. If you like this, consider liking and subscribing. See you next time. Assuming the mouthwashing won't get to me first.